Hello, hello! Would you like to learn about the new generation of immunotherapies using dendritic cells? Which companies are developing them? And which therapies require them? And of course, what are the market expectations for this? Let's get started! This is Taxi Biotech, a program designed to keep you updated on the latest news and trends in the world of biotechnology, as well as to learn about its impact on the stock market. The stock data I share here is a reflection of the progress of the companies or the clinical trials and does not constitute any investment advice. This is purely entertainment. Okay, a few days ago, a press release with a striking headline caught my attention. I read, NODC reveals the new generation of immunotherapy targeting dendritic cells. So I said, let's focus in dendritic cells. What are the surrounding things? NODC is a company focused on therapies aimed at this type of cells. Their strategy is based on using an antibody attached to an antigen. The antibody is directed at CD40, which is specific to dendritic cells. So that dendritic cell recognizes the antigen and presents it for the immune system to react to it. According to their vision, this approach would reduce side effects and generate long-lasting responses. The company is French, with clinical developments in infectious diseases. With this new therapy approach, they aim to generate long-term responses. They claim their platform is the first of its kind, directly targeting the most crucial source of immunity, dendritic cells. In addition, they changed their CEO and some of their team members. We'll look at their profiles later on. So let's start doing a quick recap on what a dendritic cell is. A dendritic cell is an antigen-presenting cell capable of recognizing antigens and making other cells recognize them. These could be CD8 cells, which can kill cancerous or infected cells, or CD4 cells, which are usually helpers. They can also be regulators, but for doing this simple, they help to the immune system, okay? And the dendritic cells could also activate B cells, which can generate long-lasting antibodies recognizing the antigen presented by dendritic cells. Therefore, we can see that these cells plays a closer role in initiating a long-lasting immune response, making them a perfect target for immune therapies. There is no doubt that cancer vaccines can transform the therapeutic area, bringing a wave of optimism. How would this vaccine work until now? In the same way as COVID vaccines have worked, we will have an mRNA molecule encapsulated in a lipid nanoparticle, which could be taken up non-specifically by different cell types. This detail is important. The lipid nanoparticle could be taken up by all kinds of cells, but could eventually reach dendritic cells, which would activate the anti-cells, the ones producing immunity against the desired antigen. In this Nature article from this year, it is highlighted that mRNA vaccines do not specifically target dendritic cells. In NODC case, they take this further by proposing to attach to an antibody here targeting CD40 to go directly to dendritic cells. They attach an antigen here colored in orange color that the immune system is supposed to respond to. So we have two variants here. Antibodies directed only to dendritic cells, or lipid nanoparticles that target dendritic cells, but also other types of cells. It is worth noting that the immune system is very precise because it needs to recognize cell antigens to avoid being attacked. Therefore, it's not as simple as it seems in the paper. NODC has various molecules in its pipeline, always with CD40 role. Here related with infectious disease, and here vaccine related to cancer. They recently presented results from their phase 1 study targeting the HIV virus, where they found safety and immunogenicity. If we enter into results, here we can see that adverse effects were mild or moderate, associated with the injector site, and very few patients withdrew from the trial. But focusing on this image, we can see that CD4 and CD8 cells shows that they can react to antigens compared to those patients receiving a placebo here in gray who did not react. So this validates the model, taking into account that CD4 and CD8 are reacting to the antigen 6 weeks before the injection, and placebo patients don't react, obviously. So let's analyze now the changing of roles in Chief Medical Officer. I like that the new CEO has experience with other small companies, and the new Chief Medical Officer work with emergent therapeutics. And emergent therapeutics was acquired by Lilly, and a lot of these companies is looking for an exit, where a very big company buys them. NODC is not in the stock market, and we are going to follow this closely, is if this company reaches the stock market or does an exit. Let's see. So I'm going to analyze another different company that has a product in the market with more or less this system. It's not the same, obviously. It's Dendritic. In this case, they take the advantage that the prostatic acid phosphatase is present in 95% of prostate cancer. So they extract cells from the patients and stimulate them with GM-CSF factor and reinject them into the patient to trigger an immune response against prostate cancer. And this is important. It's not the same approach, obviously. There are miles away from one approach to the other, but we already know that exposing antigens works, at least in this way. So it was first approach. They have a product in the market, Provenge, and other companies are developing this kind of presentations. Unfortunately, Dendritic or NODC are not publicly traded. So let's look at other that are and have similar strategy, but they are in the stock market. The first one is PDS Biotech, which has already appeared in previous videos. In this case, according to their website, their nanoparticles are efficiently absorbed by dendritic cells. Efficient doesn't mean specific, but they claim to focus more on this type of cell. They do this with their star molecule Versamune. They have several phase 2 trials and are on the verge of phase 3 with collaborators with companies and medical centers. Looking at their chart, we can see the typical volatility of a biotech company. Plus 400 and then minus 80 over 2 years. But lately, it seemed more stable and hasn't broken out. Let's take a look at these key points and their figures. I select these key moments here and what happened in these key moments. First of all, I'm going to analyze their financial report. Okay, their last financial report shows they are spending 8 million in the last quarter and 10 million in half a year. Their balance is nearly 58 million in cash. From previous months and years of reviewing biotech companies, I can say that having 58 million in cash with 20 millions in annual spending isn't too negative in the short term, because they have enough cash to keep progressing. So this is a very important thing to take into consideration. This is the 10Q. I will leave all the links below in the box of comments. And the 400 rise I marked in the graph is it correspond to these milestones that I selected here in yellow. Satisfactory meeting with the FDA, interim phase 2 data, 100% response in cervical cancer patients, and survival data at 21 months. Okay, good pre-release, good news, increase the price. It's logic, it's okay. But then we can see here this drop of 43%, and it corresponds to this press release. They presented 12-month interim survival data, and the stock plunged 43%. No serious adverse effects were reported, but 8% had type 3 side effects, which they say isn't much. This data doesn't seem like enough for such a drop, but that's biotech for you. Consider yourself warned. However, what happened later in October? Increasing 60%. Okay, so they present results showing a rapid decline in circulated tumor DNA levels, and the stocks jumps 60%, recovering what was lost. So this is biotech. They recently presented the best results, but there wasn't been much movement. We previously mentioned that this is a long-term trial in the previous video with a single arm, and it is still from for approval if it gets approval. But I think it should have been more volatile, more volume in the stock. What do you think this stock will do in the short term? I would say it will rise, but now I'm sure, since it hasn't moved. It hasn't moved. So let me your comments in the box of comments, please. Okay, so far we've seen companies developing therapies for dendritic cells. Let's now, sorry, in English. So let's now look at therapies that require dendritic cells to be effective. Look, this company called Mendus, with the ticker EMMU on the Swedish Stock Exchange. What they do is irradiate leukemia cells and reinject them to be captured by dendritic cells to generate immunity. This drug called Bindecel, and it is in phase 2. The latest results from June this year shows that 10 out of 15 patients respond positively with an immune response to the treatment. In this case, their stock has been stable for a year, with a small market cap and low volume, barely $15,000 a day. This means the stock will be significantly affected by cash inflows or withdrawals. However, they have as much as cash as expenses, so there is a risk of capital rises. Because of that, I'm not going to analyze it. Low volume, Swedish stock market, low cash position. It's not something very interesting for me. Okay, now let's focus on non-specific solutions with lipid nanoparticles. Okay, let's start with CureVac. CureVac present this trial for cancer vaccines. they have a graph here below, and we can see how the lipid nanoparticles is injected. It travels to the lymph node and is taken up by dendritic cells to activate the immune system. Finally, in the last sheet, they say that it was well tolerated, with 77% of the patients responding to the therapy. They have several clinical trials in infectious disease here, with flu and COVID, and with cancer, also with cancer immunotherapies, and some in phase 2. I think here, cancer only phase 1, infectious disease in phase 2. We are going to analyze here the graph, and there is 2 key moments here, with a drop of let's see, 40%, and here with an increase of, let's see, 120%. The first one, this is marked in red, is due to litigations against Biotech. Okay, CureVac claims that it's on the patent and is under litigation against Biotech, and they are in trouble with this. So I'm not going to enter into this discussion. Okay, um, so this pending patent litigations makes me uneasy, knowing that news could drop at any moment. Additionally, according to these tweets, they are restructuring the company, and they have reached an agreement with GSK and are cutting 30% of the workforce. So they are selling apart some of their vaccine business. So, taking into account that the patent issue and restructuring company thing, I think that it should be studied thoroughly before taking a position here. It's 2 things so complicated to take a position here. And from now on, these are companies that that they have similar approaches, and they are competing with a very big pharma. Okay. For example, Etherna with lipid nanoparticle platforms, with Arcturus that has more or less the same approach. Look, a normal, a regular picture of a real picture of their lab. This is the things that they have to say in their webpage. In previous video, we saw recreations. We don't like recreations. We like real laboratories. So, and then there are really big companies. Pfizer with Biotech have a lot of clinical trials here with mRNAs. Glaxo, look at this monster of, it's a monster company. Moderna also, they have a lot of clinical trials with this approach, and also Sanofi, that they bought Translate Bio to enter into mRNA therapeutics. So we've seen that there are therapies exclusively targeting dendritic cells, and others that also reach dendritic cells but can also affect other cell types. Both seem effective. Lipid nanoparticle-based therapies have already proved effective, but the others still need to demonstrate this. This is the overall picture of therapies that rely on the dendritic cells. There is no doubt that this is a very promising area that will be succeed, as some therapies are already approved, and major pharmaceutical companies are involved. Now, as investors, what should we choose? A small business with disruptive and innovative technologies, or competitors of big pharma with similar technologies. My personal opinion, which is not investment advice, of course, is that I see a lot of competition using the same lipid. It's likely because it's effective, okay, and will work, okay. However, picking the winning company will be more challenging. On the other hand, what I like about other approaches is that they have the potential to outperform all the competition. It's a pity that NODC isn't publicly traded, so we can track its progress and confirm hypotheses. What do you think? For coming episodes, we can dive into topics like mitochondria, the